noticed. Hi there. We are live, but I just noticed my focus on my camera got super duper messed up somehow. And I think that's about right. Something like that. There we go. We are live, but I just noticed my focus on my... There we go. Very good. Also, I noticed that people try to use the live chat because I'm not bothering disabling the live chat. It just takes too long. But if you are on there, I am not going to read those comments. So don't bother commenting on there. Office Hours is all about me talking with people who are in my Discord and on the live stream. And so if you want to get your questions answered, go to kcd.im/discord to get questions answered there. And with that, yeah, today's Monday. It's been a week. Had a great Thanksgiving. It was fun. A lot of fun with the fam. And it looks like we do have a couple of questions in the Discord chat, but let's just dive in. Anybody here in the Zoom have any questions they want to ask before I get into Discord questions? Okay, cool. I have no problem just going straight to Discord. So let's find, let's see, I think, here we go. Great, let me just copy a message link here. And actually, I'm gonna grab this as well. Starting here and live stream here. Okay, cool. So Ryan asked about an edit and view mode React component, and that the user can toggle between these two states. Let me just read it really quick. Let me just look at this. So my guess is that like the inclination for us when we have stuff like this is we look at this and we're like, oh my gosh, look at how much shared stuff there is between here. All I have to do is add a little bit of logic for whether I should display this and then whether I should display the selector or the actual time. So we end up abstracting right away. So this, I realize this may not be exactly Ryan's question, but one thing I just wanted to mention is don't do that. Make complete copies of the component for both of these. There will be a lot of duplicate code, and wait until those copies are all there and set. You've got those in place before you start thinking about how you're going to abstract it, because once you have that in place, those duplicates, then going through and abstracting will give you a couple of there will be a couple benefits. You'll have a better picture for the abstraction that's needed, and you'll be able to compare the abstracted version with the duplicate version, and you may find out that duplicating the code is actually easier. Yeah, more maintainable and whatever. So anyway, that's not exactly the question. So I think that the question is, the parent state has a mode, so view or edit, save changes and edits. That sounds perfect. I don't really see any, like you could, it sounds like you're doing this in a lot of components. And so I would suggest duplicating that logic for all the areas of the app that are doing this, and then seeing if there are custom hooks that you could use to abstract that duplicate logic. But make sure you duplicate it first before you try to pretend that you can solve every problem that faces this use case. Because yeah, if you don't experience those problems first, you're probably going to build the wrong solution. anyway, it sounds this sounds like the right approach to me, of having the mode as an enum viewer edit, the saved changes, which really those would, for me, that would just be in React Query. And then the edits would just be some, client side thing. If you hit refresh, you don't really care to preserve those edits. Yeah, might be useful to have some affordances for the user to indicate that they have unsaved changes, but that's a design question. So anyway, Emmer is wondering about if I were going to use Remix for Epic React or testing JavaScript, how I'd handle CDN cache. And we did get into a bit of a discussion. I didn't read through all of this, but when I read this question, there was one thing that came to my mind, and that is, first I'll say that CDN caching is something that I'm not super familiar with. It was one of the reasons why I was so bullish on going with static site generators. It's because I could just take these files and put it on a CDN that's optimized to just basically cache forever, because I use a hash in those static files. And then I never have to worry about caching. So my experience with cache headers is pretty limited. But one thing that I know is, let's see, HTTP cache vary by. So there's the vary header, which allows you to vary by other header names. And so you could vary by a particular user, and then you could actually still leverage the cache for like the CDN cache. And so the CDN would store a cached version of like users' information, which, depending on maybe that CDN is, sorry, the thing that I'm thinking about with that is like, well, okay, now we're storing user data in a CDN. Is that okay? And I mean, lots of companies do this, but maybe your CDN is from your own company or something, in which case it's fine. So anyway, that's one thing. If you really wanted to cache stuff, then you could vary by a header that is like the user ID or something like that. Then yeah, very user agent even. So you could, well, probably wouldn't want to do that because multiple users could use the same computer. But yeah, you could vary by some sort of user ID or something. So that would be one thing to consider. It seemed like there was some pretty good, solid discussion here. I did read through some of this tweet thread. I thought that was pretty interesting. I definitely relate to Ryan here. And yeah, right here, I read through this too. I feel like there was something. Yeah, I love this about Remix. Just using the platform, the right parts of the platform that actually work. We're not talking about web components today. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, where it still differs is basically what we're saying here, Emmer, is we've got SSG has a problem everywhere. They don't let's see, because they don't server render, they have to show some sort of loading state before while they're going to get the data. And so that's whether it's public or anything, it's always going to show a loading state. And then what we're saying here is for server-side rendering, you're going to have a user some sort of loading state. You're not going to display a page with a loading state, but you will have some. You won't have CDN caching for authenticated data. So basically, server-side rendering is better for the public stuff, but when you get to the private stuff, then things start to not be, or yeah, are less better than server-side generation. So I still think it's better, but there are still strategies that you can take advantage of. And I feel like Ryan, I think he just tweeted something else that was kind of interesting here as well. Yeah, right here. So let me paste this right there. You get partial page caching too, which is really interesting. Read through that. That's kind of interesting thoughts there. Okay, cool. So hopefully that's helpful and at least interesting. Okay, Peter's wondering. Let's take a look at this. Oh, right. Yeah, I remember. So I did a lot of this sort of thing in Downshift. I would do this all the time. Have like a little setup function that did the common stuff, and then even a couple functions that would perform assertions and stuff. I don't see a lot of problem with this at all. Personally, I feel like it makes a lot of sense. Like it's just a matter of learn what this does, and then you'll understand what these tests are doing. I personally probably wouldn't do like make the API for this function parameters. I'd make them named because I have no idea true, false, 0, false, true. What, like, I don't understand what that means. I can assume what the number is because we're talking about at time, so we're going to advance the timer, but the true false doesn't make any sense to me. So I would just make these objects and destructure those values so that I could have name parameters. Yeah. I feel like there was something else. Another thing you might consider. Oh, yeah. So there was this JSON stringify thing. So I probably wouldn't, if you feel like you need to do this, then I would not go with this approach for testing custom hooks. So test, yeah, here we go. So in here, I explain how to test custom hooks, and I say, hey, just make an example component and render that example, and then interact with that example just like a user would, like a user of your custom hook would do. But sometimes it just doesn't, like what you're trying to create has like so many different use cases and things that making just a single example doesn't quite cover all the use cases. And so that's where you bring in testing library React hooks so that you don't have to worry about building those use cases, and you just interact with whatever the result of your, or like the return value of your hook is more directly. It requires that you use act whenever you interact with something that'll update the state, but that's not a big deal. Who cares? And it just allows you to make more specific assertions rather than relying on JSON stringify and JSON parse. I'm guessing you have a parse in here. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, no, you just get by text JSON stringify. Yeah, so I mean, it's fine because your code here doesn't really care how that all works. You just like the code that you actually write for the test doesn't care. And so it's been abstracted away by both these utilities. So that's maybe not as big of a deal. But I still kind of feel like you might be better off going with React hooks testing library here as well. Cool. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, let's see where we're at. Yeah, I already passed that. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sure thing, Peter. Yeah, thumbs up. Thanks, Ricardo. How many years have I spent mastering JS and React? Well, Martin, you can find my whole story right here. So it's been, let's see, my first line of, here, let's find out. First line of JavaScript was written when I was working at Domo. Yeah, here we go, 2014. At the very end of 2014, I don't think I actually started JavaScript in the first couple months. So it was around 2015 is when I started doing JavaScript stuff. Oh wait, no, that was away from Domo. So yeah, was the beginning of 2014. Then, yeah, that's right. Beginning of maybe around. Actually, no, because I was an intern. Yeah, this thing happened. That was fun. Yeah, I think it must have been 2013. 2012. There we go. Okay, that makes more sense because I graduated in 2014. I remember that date. So yeah, right around the very end of 2012, very beginning of 2013. I still have this laptop, by the way. It's kind of fun. Yeah, my wife and kids use it sometimes. Anyway, good times. So yeah, and I pretty much dedicated my life to JavaScript at that time. I didn't actually start with React until yeah, till this point in time, which was 2014. So toward the very tail end of 2014, I think. Yeah, that was a good time. Yeah, I tweeted my favorite quotes from the docs. And I remember reading those docs and being like, wow, that is so true, or that's so great. I love that. Well, that's not entirely true now. You can build hooks. Ha ha. Yeah. It's fun to look back. So anyway, hopefully that's interesting and helpful. Okay, cool. How do you secure API keys when you only work with front-end code? What's the best way to store API keys? So, Martin, if you're only doing front-end, then you cannot do, like, securing API keys is not a thing. So let me state that differently. You cannot secure API keys in the front end. So if you have, often clients or third-party vendors will have a public key that you can put in the client to interact with their services. And the way they secure that, basically, as far as I know, is they go based off of the referring domain, I guess. I'm not exactly sure how that works, honestly. But yeah, so if they have a public key, then you can put that in your front-end stuff and it ends up working out okay. But if you've got a private key, like your Stripe backend something or other, then yeah, you just can't do that on the front end. You have to assume that anything that goes over the wire to the user is in clear view of the user. So don't pretend that you can just obfuscate it and like compress it or do something weird to it. You can't. That's not possible. So unless you have a backend and so you have a private key to decode it and stuff, but then why would you do that? Like, just put it on the backend. So you need a backend to store that stuff. So if it's like something that you only need at build time, now that's different. You could just put the private information in your build or your CI pipeline or whatever, and then that, this would be like you need to go get stuff from your CMS, but that's private. And so you, here's my key, go get stuff from the CMS, and then I ship the built stuff from the CMS. So that would be different. But I'm guessing you're talking about stuff where users need to interact with some sort of third-party API. You have a private key. You don't want them to see what it is. In that case, this is where serverless functions come in really handy because at least for somebody like me, and I'm assuming like you, I only work with the front end. I pretty much just prefer to hang out on the front end. And so serverless functions are really great because it means I just write this little snippet of code to handle that private key. And then I just hit that function and it does whatever I need to. And that private key is preserved. So I do have a blog post about serverless. And I've got two actually. So if you want to go with serverless on Firebase or on Netlify, I've got super simple starters for you. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay. Using Apollo client, full disclosure, I've never used Apollo client to run tests against the GraphQL backend. Interesting. So you want my opinion on how to go about this, but it sounds like you're already doing it. I'm not sure what you're asking. But here are my first thoughts. If you're just using Apollo Client for tests, then you're using a tool that has a huge amount of complexity to solve a totally different problem. So I would avoid using Apollo Client for that. And instead, I would suggest using something way more lightweight. And people who are familiar with me will know what I'm going to say. We've got GraphQL request. Or maybe it's request GraphQL. I can never remember. Hold on. Yeah, minimal something. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so this is what I would use because it's way more lightweight. And so it should be less to learn for you and people in the future. And it should solve your problem just as well. So that's probably what I would suggest using. I totally missed this, except for file uploads. So I don't know how file uploads work in GraphQL. I would have to, yeah, sorry about that. File uploads. I've never used GraphQL to upload files. So this is what I would do. GraphQL file upload. So it's a new addition to GraphQL. That's cool. So I would just go learn about it. It looks like Apollo server supports it. I'm guessing Apollo client must as well. So yeah, I can't really offer you too much because I just be Googling just like you. Yeah, I have no opinions. Sorry, that was a bunch of words for which I didn't provide much value. So, okay. Bala is asking if I don't care about completion of the component while testing, as I mentioned before, maybe avatar is lazy loaded. Yeah, I think this is, yeah, I remember this conversation. Yeah. Yeah, so actually I had a few more thoughts about this. So the basic idea is you want to have some mechanism for detecting whether or not the components have not only cleaned up after themselves properly, but also completed doing all of the work that they're supposed to or that they're intended to do. And so I had a thought that I thought was kind of interesting, where what if you, here, let me go back to this comment. What if you had some sort of variable that you could flip that maybe is based on CI? So you have it, disabled locally and enabled on CI or vice versa or something, or just something you could switch on, which would add, yeah, it wouldn't work if you do it as an after each, unless you make sure that your after each happens before the one in testing library, which I think you should be able to do. You'd have to play around with it a little bit, maybe make sure that your code is imported or your after each is set up after React testing libraries, which I think, because they run in reverse order, I believe, the after eaches. So React testing library has an after each that does a cleanup. And so if you register one after that, that just has an await, and it would do like await async, and then you'd have your promise for 500 milliseconds or something. This would result in every test taking 500 additional milliseconds, which is why I would say maybe only enable it sometimes when you're specifically trying to look for this. But yeah, it could help you find these problems. And it would just be like this little block of code that you could add in your setup file. And you could maybe comment it out or something, or have some if statement that just says, if check for memory leaks, then run this after each that does this await, act async, wait for 500 milliseconds or something, and see if there's any console output or something like that. That might work. Hopefully that's sort of helpful. Okay. If you were writing a test for a password field that shows a warning on the caps lock key being active, how would you do it? I don't know. I've never written that sort of UI experience, and so I'm not sure how you detect whether the caps lock key is active. But you'd want to figure out how that happens. I'm sure you know, assuming that you've already built this. So you would need to configure your events that you're firing to do that same thing. Here, okay, let's see. Detect or JavaScript detect caps lock key. All right, W3 schools, I'll give you a chance, but I'm going to open up these other ones just in case. Yeah, I actually don't have the caps lock key. I have it mapped to escape. Haha. So there's this get modifier state thing. That's interesting. I'm guessing that there's a better way to do this because, let's see, caps. Huh. Looks like that's what you need to use. Yeah, so I'm guessing this is what you're doing, Daniel. Maybe it's not. But yeah, I wonder if get modifier state is implemented in JS DOM. I'm guessing it is. Yeah, it looks like they've got tests for it, so it probably is. And so when they create an event, they say modifier caps lock true. I'm guessing that's also spec. Events polyfill. Oh, that is spec. There we go. So event modifier init. So you have, that's interesting. Fascinating. So yeah, for all of and let's take it full circle. You're probably using user event. And there's a type function, which is, I'm guessing, is what you're using. And you have options. And the options, where are the options? Do we not talk about what the options are? Options.delay. Yeah. This may need to either be implemented or better documented. Or yeah, I think actually this may need to be implemented. So let's see. If we go to type, we have modifier callback map. So you can do Shift, Control, Alt, and Meta. I think, yeah, I think we just need to add another one of these. That would be caps lock. Whoa. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and then I think it basically would amount to copy paste this, do name caps lock, all lowercase probably. This would be like the thing you do in hello. So that when you say type, yeah, let's do it properly. Element. There you go. So when you say type, here's my element. I want you to hit the meta key, type these characters, and then lift up the meta key or whatever. So we'd probably do like a caps lock. And you don't have to lift it up. It'll lift it up automatically if you don't put it at the end. So we'd have a caps lock, and then you could type just any character, and then it would set that. Interesting thing is that caps lock isn't state. Well, yeah, no, that would work. So then the key is interesting. So you'd have to figure out what key it is. And here we've got the user event playground. Here, I'm going to copy a bunch of stuff. Let's put this right here because that's kind of interesting. Here, we'll put this here too. Why not? And this. And I'm not giving any credit to that site. No, just kidding. They're great. Oh, and because my caps lock doesn't work, oh, let's just find out together. Let's go to my general or my keyboard settings. Modifier keys. Caps lock is caps lock now. Okay, so if I'm in here, okay, sometimes this doesn't work properly. This should be, I'm guessing something didn't quite work. There we go. Okay, so let's clear our output. I come in here. We get a bunch of events when I do that. And then if I hit caps lock, I get a key down and a key up. And I'm guessing that there was some information there with that. We actually do get a console log here. Let's hold on a second. That said it was escape. Huh. I think I need to fix something here. I think my something or other is messed up there. There we go. That's what it was. Okay, there we go. So coming back, we're gonna minimize this thing, get rid of this. We'll go here, and then I come here. We get a ton of things, and I hit caps lock. Now my caps lock is still not working. Oh, but there we go. Here we go. So now we've got the key is caps lock. So that's what you would use for the key. You just say caps lock, and then the key code. Key code is 20. So you put 20, and then the modifier property will be modifier caps lock. Yep, and that would do it. And then you should be able to implement this. So let me fix this, and feel free to do that. I'm not working on it because it's not my something that I need, but you're more than welcome to work on it because it's something that you need. So very good. Hopefully that was interesting and helpful and fun. And now I am closing this. Oh, here, let me grab this as well. And I will just grab this too. Okay, cool. Fun stuff. Okay, so how can I, and by the way, Daniel, you don't have to do this, do all of this stuff to like contribute to user event or whatever. You could just do a fire event. And with fire event, you can provide an additional argument for the additional init. So it'd be like fire event dot key down probably, or whatever event that you're listening for on the elements. And then your fake init would be modifier caps lock true. And that would do it. That should probably do it. I'll just grab that. Maybe that'll help. Okay, cool. Create dynamic refs in a loop. I don't think I can. What should I do? Well, it's easier if you have a code sample for me to modify and change than to explain how you could do this. But I recently saw a really clever way to do this. I thought was interesting, but now I've forgotten. So one thing that I've like kind of suggested in the past, but I've never actually done this, and it may not actually work. But with refs, you can actually provide a function for the ref. And then that function could .push on a ref. So you can have a ref of arrays. The problem with that is I'm not sure about cleanup. I think that if that DOM node was removed from the DOM, then it'll call your ref again with null. But then I'm not sure if it's very easy for you to identify which element is being removed. I'm guessing this is going to be inside of a map or something, so you may have a closure on the index, and so you can maybe swap out things. That might be hard. So the next thing that you could do is make a component, and that component can have the ref. So then you don't have an array of refs. And so like you don't have to loop over and have a use ref inside of the loop, which of course wouldn't work. Another thing that you could do is instead, I'm guessing you're trying to get DOM nodes. That's my assumption. If I get that wrong, then let me know. But another thing that you could do is instead of using a ref, just add a class name or a data attribute and have a ref on the parent. And then anytime you need to access all the children, you just do a query. That's definitely the easiest. If you can manage that, then I suggest it because that is by far the easiest approach. But without code, there's only so much I can tell you. Welcome, beginner. That's great. Yeah. Okay. So there is something I can give you. JavaScript to know for React. So here's this, and there's also how to React, which may be useful as well. So if you can read through JavaScript to know for React, and you understand what these different features are, like maybe you have never used them before, that's fine, but like you can read it and you're like, I understand what this is doing. Like having, I'll just read this really quick and like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I understand what that is. So if you have a pretty comfortable handle on these different features, then you're ready for Epic React. This is the only true knowledge and experience that you really have to have for Epic React. Now, you may or may not be able to finish it very quickly. It's a lot of material, and I don't recommend anybody going through it super fast because you want to remember this stuff. But you can get started on it, and it will provide you a great deal of value. So good luck, and welcome to our community. Need to access the current application data inside a set timeout. When the callback runs, getting a status of the application when it's scheduled 10 seconds before. Yes, so without some code, I can't really give you a whole lot of like direct advice, but maybe this will help. So what the problem that I'm guessing that you have is you have some like state, it's like 1, and then you have a set timeout. And here you're like console log state. And we're going to do this in 200 milliseconds. And then later we have, here, let's not do const. We'll need to do that. And we'll say state is now 2. But here's what we're going to do before, after. So this is what you've got. But the console log is going to log out 1. Or sorry, let's see. No, that'll log out 2. Let me see. Because what I'm guessing is you want to have the latest version of the data. So maybe, yeah, I need some code for to understand exactly what your use case is. Yeah. So what I was gonna suggest is like, well, maybe this this value is passed into a function, foo, state, and then foo is a function that takes something and it tries to assign thing to blah or whatever. So now this is going to log out 1 instead of blah, and you want to make sure that it logs out whatever the latest version is. And so if you wanted that, then this is what you'd have to do. Instead, let's say, here's my state current 1, and then here we'd say thing.current equals blah. And then that would need to log out current. This is basically how refs work. But without some code, I really can't help you too much. I don't know what you're actually trying to accomplish. So good luck. How do I do module resolution SCSS modules in a Create React app? Does JSConfig also work for SCSS files? I don't know. I've never used SCSS for Create React app, so I can't tell you. Sorry. Wow, migrating from React 0.13 and Flex, good old days. So this is tricky because this is a React version that doesn't support incremental migration. So you really have to do it all at once. One thing that you might consider is single SPA, which would allow you to have two versions of React on the page at once, with some pretty heavy caveats, but maybe that is helpful. So good luck. The thing is, like, migrations should be done over time. So as much as you can, try to make that work over time. Okay, cool. So welcome, Ivan, with your first question. White flash. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. I know what this is all about. White flash. White flash. Super annoying. I'm guessing. Let's take a look at how this is built. Yeah. So this is a client-side rendered thing. So you can get around this. Well, yeah, you can't, can you? You're kind of toast, because the yeah. Yeah, I don't get that on server rendered stuff. But there is a thing that you can do. I think this will work even with a fully client side. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this will work. So what's his name? Josh Como. I think it's maybe. Okay, let's try that. Josh Como. I'm sure he's got a link to his site here somewhere. There it is. So this person is just amazing. Like, look at this. Who does this? And there's sound effects. I freaking love this. I love it. Man, I love Josh's stuff. Amazing. So, oh man, and it's got like a little bloop. It's so fun. Anyway, he's got a post about dark mode in here. Flash of light mode. This is exactly what you're talking about, except his is server render. Well, his is static site generation. I'm pretty sure he's using Gatsby. Yep. Well, no. Pretty sure it's Gatsby. Anyway, so the basically the solution is have a little bit of JavaScript code in the head right here that checks whether or not it should be in dark mode. And for yours, it sounds like yours is always dark mode, maybe. But yeah, so this would set some CSS variables right from the get-go. And you might even, if yours is not CSS variables like no theme or something. Oh no, you do have dark mode. So yeah, you would just read this thing. He describes the problem really well and the solution. It's great. And he's just an awesome person. I love this. Freaking A. He's so awesome. I want to be like Josh when I grow up. It's so cool. Okay. Great. Hopefully that's helpful. Good luck. Okay. Yeah. You definitely don't want to. This is not a good workflow. Don't do that. So the server that you're using and the templating language, at some point when the user hits that template is going to turn into HTML by the tool that you're using, and it'll send it off to the browser. So your test should do the same thing. Whatever template language that you're using has some mechanism for turning that template into a string of HTML. And so you instead of copy pasting the resulting HTML every time you make updates to that, you pass the template, the source code, the template to that tool in your test. Maybe this would be like a utility file or something. You'd say, here's my template, go read that, turn that into HTML, give it back to me, and then you put that into the DOM. That's what I suggest. Now it sounds like you're Now, if you don't have access to those files, because it kind of sounds like that's the case, you don't have access to the template files, then get access. Have the test should run in the same repo that the template files are in. I suppose an alternative is, as you suggest, running the background or the backend in the background, and have the test make fetch requests and parsing the DOM, which would be a solution if that is the only option. But I don't suggest that. I mean, you'll get confidence in everything else that the backend is doing, so that could be useful. Like at this point, though, I'd just say if that's where you're at, then just use Cypress. Yeah, that might be even better anyway. So here, let me give you Cypress and Cypress testing library. Here, and actually I can reply. That's cool. So let's reply so we get a little context here. Yeah, that's kind of nice. I like replying. Yeah, so try that. If you don't have access to the source files for one reason or another, then just use Cypress and run the backend in the background. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, interesting thought. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, so here's how you make ESLint and Prettier work together. I'll show you actually. ESLint config Prettier. Use this. And what this does is it turns off all the rules that are unnecessary or might conflict with Prettier. So it just turns them off. And that's what I recommend. I don't need a red squiggly telling me that I have an extra space or am missing a space when hitting the save key is just going to fix that for me anyway. I hate that. So yeah, don't even bother. Just let Prettier fix everything, get everything disabled. They've got configs for all sorts of stuff. So yeah, that's what I strongly suggest. Just disable ESLint for things Prettier will fix for you. Okay, cool. Come across conditional lazy imports of CSS files. Do you recommend it? Well, so every time you're going to lazily load something, you're getting the benefit of not loading that up front, but then the trade-off of the user having to wait for that to load before they can use it. So if the user needs to use it up front, then don't lazy load it. So it kind of depends. For like light and dark theme CSS, I mean, it depends on what you're doing, but you probably should be using CSS variables for that sort of thing anyway, so it shouldn't make a huge impact. And I've got a blog post about this right here. So I will give you that. Yeah, so there wouldn't be a whole lot of value in lazy loading that. I probably wouldn't do it. Okay. Is there a nice pattern to make components that can be both controlled and uncontrolled? Yes, there is. And I teach you how to do that in Epic React. And I probably can find some other resources that are not for pay here in just a second, but let me find it. Yeah, control props right here. I teach you how to make it both controlled and uncontrolled as part of this here. But let me find, here here's the open source material. So shoot, I forgot. I think this is the last exercise. Yeah, so there's that. So if you wanted to work through that exercise on your own, you totally can. Yeah, that one's kind of fun. The extra credits here at the end are, this one's pretty wild. But yeah, that exists. Let's see. There was another, I've got a blog post about it, I think, sort of controlled props. So this one's not exactly what you're looking for, but hopefully those are helpful to you. Okay, great. That's it. We reached it. I've got 9 minutes left. So if there are any last minute questions, then give them to me, but I'll start closing things up. So unless we've got something else coming up, which I don't think we do, then I think, oh, the fourth, no, it's not the fourth, it's the third. Okay. Yeah, so the third should work out just fine for office hours. So that's great. So we'll see you for office hours on Thursday, 4 to 5 Mountain Time. And let me just see if there was any last questions. Looks like no. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks everybody for hanging out. This was a good session of questions and answers. Not all of them super helpful, but hopefully some of them were. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all in our community here and hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks, everyone.